Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Big MX Radio Podcast. This episode is brought to you by Race Tech, as well as my tongue working properly, and my friends over at Luxon MX. You can enter discount code BigMX 2025 at checkout. That's going to save you 10% off every single one of your purchases. And yeah, please use my code rather than Mathis's code because I'm in a race to be able to get my code used more than his throughout this year, and it's actually close, believe it or not, thanks to my ninja abilities with SEO and all those fun things around that. I'm sure that a lot of people who don't actually listen to Big MX Radio are helping me out on that side of things, but hopefully some of my listeners can do that as well by entering discount code BigMX 2025 at checkout. Luxon MX, get yourself some brand new triple clamps or some chassis components, maybe you need to replace your bar mounts, or you need some engine mounts that need to be replaced to have the engine a little bit more dampened or something along those lines. The engineering asked of in the sport of motocross pales in comparison to what Luxon is capable of, and that's why they're amazing at what they do. I am your host, Brad Gebhart. With me on the line, returning to the podcast, he is an analyst. He is a absolute bullshitter and a fan of all things USA, especially when they go out and win the ISDE. Kyle Wolfe, how's it going?
What's going on, Brad? Thanks for having me back on.
Not doing too bad, man. Really appreciate you making some time to come back on the podcast. It's always fun to pick your brain, especially because like I'm always super locked in, supercross, motocross. Obviously, I keep an eye on the Red Bear Kawasaki team, which do run the Luxon MX clamps over in GNCC, but you're just smothered all over the GNCC world. You're in there like a termite. You're always checking that thing out. So before we get to the SMX side of things, let's get your thoughts on this last weekend's GNCC. Surprise, surprise! I heard there was some rain.
There was some rain. It was on Saturday for the ATV day, which after the season that we've been through, and then just last week, I was in Italy for the ISDE, the 6 days enduro, and it rained a few times there. So you gotta laugh at this point. You
You're
can't even be
hydrated.
upset because that's just the standard anymore that we're gonna get rain. But no, it rained during the quad day, and it wasn't actually that bad. It was more just the rain and the wind that kind of made it annoying just to stand in. But as far as the track goes, it was good. And then by Sunday for the bikes, it actually turned out really well. It was still slick in spots. That dirt's really deceiving in that area, but no, that the track actually turned out really well.
Fair enough. And I don't think I'm alone when I say when it's muddy, send out the quads.
Yeah, that's usually the better option as far as to make the track passable. It doesn't exactly make the track fun since they polished it all off, but it at least makes the track passable.
During your time racing as a youngster, did you ever have a situation where you were racing, like there was a quad class at the same time as moto? I know for us in here in Manitoba, I believe it was 3 or 4 races a year. The quads would be part of the program. That usually meant some pretty flat corners, but if it was muddy in the morning, we were sending them.
Never at the exact same time. It's usually on a different day or a different time of the day. Depending on what format they were usually after the bikes. In the case of GNCC, they're always before, but no, never at the exact same time. Though I do remember seeing when Speed Vision was still a channel on TV. There was I don't know
Electric.
what it was, but it was an indoor race. It was a circle track with a couple of jumps on each side, quads and bikes at the same time. I think it was up in Canada, incidentally enough, and it was basically like the way I saw it was the indoor version of a county fair down here.
That sounds like the Montreal Supercross, and that very well could be what that was.
Oh no, no,
I
this Montreal at least is a professional event. There were guys in cutoff t-shirts and jeans and work boots. This was when I say county fair, I mean to the T. You had guys out of the woodwork. That was what
Oh,
was on
okay.
TV for that race, whatever the heck that was.
Oh, very well could have been something from Saskatchewan, where the capital city is Regina, the city that rhymes with fun. So We're talking playoffs in this particular weekend. But before, like I said, before we get to that, we introduced the fact that it was a little bit muddy this weekend. But what happened in the GNCC? Who came out victorious? Who showed out and was able to manage those slick conditions and come away with a victory?
So coming away at the end yesterday, it was Grant Davis from XE2, and
He does that a lot this year.
that was the third win this year for him. The little caveat to the weekend was during the break, there was a 2 month summer break that, all the riders had off. But during that break, there was an announcement made that, and this is, largely because of what he's been doing the last couple of years. I don't want to put it solely on him, but he has been a factor in what happened here. There was a rule change made that's, it wasn't applied during the first part of the year. It is applied now for the last four races. There, the top 20, the XE1 and the XE2 guys that are the first two rows, if they're in the top 20 overall in points, now they start on the front row. So that put Grant dead even with the points leader, Ben Kelly, regardless of class. So it made it to where, you're starting. I mean, they started side by side of each other yesterday. So it took that minute time advantage away that, Ben Kelly usually had. And so there's been controversy to that. Some people see it as a good thing, some people see it as a bad thing. I'm indifferent to it other than when it was applied. I don't like the fact that it's a mid-season change. If they wanted to change it at the beginning of next year, I have no problem with that. I don't know if it's right to change it during the middle of the year, but regardless, it was a great race. There were five guys still going for the win at the end of 3 hours, and Grant Davis came away with it. He was actually down on the ground in the third corner off the start and had to fight through everybody and get back to the lead. And he got the lead on the last lap and took it to the end. But no, it was a really good race. There were at times eight guys, within 12 seconds of each other going for the lead. So it was a good race. Like I said, mired in controversy a little bit, but nonetheless, it was a really good race on Sunday.
So what you're saying is in some way the moto gods saw Grant have this sort of like neck and neck situation coming off the gate and we're like, no, 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 no. We still want to see Grant come through the pack. So they just put him down in corner number three.
Pretty much. Yeah, he grabbed a handful of throttle and it was slick on it was a little bit of an off-camber corner downhill, and he just grabbed a handful and the rear end came around on him, and he was having to fight from about 14th place and had to get back to the lead.
How'd you get into covering GNCC?
And once, where I am in Ohio, once the moto scene was kind of starting to die off with our local, districts, underneath the AMA and stuff. I was already kind of doing off-road with running races behind my house. My dad started running what we were calling Grand Prix at the time, and that's still what they're called around here, but a hybrid of woods and, motocross and supercross. Because the first time he ever ran one, we had woods, we had a motocross track, and we had a supercross track, so we kind of combined it all, and that's basically what J Day Off Road has become in the Northeast. And so I was already ingrained in that. And then once the moto scene started dying, just because of different, decisions being made by those up at the top within our local districts and stuff, then, we started running more off-road stuff, less moto. And then once I started doing more of the camera work, I just transitioned into going to the GNCCs about 2013, 2014, started working for a couple of people, and it grew from there.
Certainly has taken you around the globe. You're currently wearing a t-shirt from the International Six Days from Italy 2025. Yeah, before we get to SMX, give me three things that you took away from ISDE 2025.
First of all, that was the seventh one that I've done, and that's about the most gorgeous area I've ever seen going to one of these races. Northern Italy was really nice. We were about an hour and a half, 2 hour drive from the Alps, so it's just really gorgeous area. Uh, Another thing is the same old story for the fifth year in a row. Josep Garcia from Spain is a bad, bad dude on a motorcycle. That guy, there's nobody touching him. He had a couple of challenges during the week, but as far as the end goal, he was lights out on the individual front. And Uh, Italy took the team win on home soil, and they did the last time they did that was in 2021 when it was in Italy again. So USA needs to step up on that front as far as the men's side is concerned. But no, it's a great race, and I wish more people, here back home would be aware of it and kind of support it and get
Get
into it
behind
because
it. Yeah.
it really is a cool event. We have for the team that we have, our trophy riders as well as our club riders, we do have a pretty large support system. I think we had about 150 people this year as far as support roles, just helping out or even just cheering on, even if they weren't helping directly, they were cheering on, waving American flags at different points. But yeah, ISD is definitely a very cool race to witness and be a part of.
Certainly. That I would love to go to one sometime. And yeah, maybe next year as it's coming up, we'll do a show sort of like highlighting and rolling into it and give it give it the props that it deserves. So let's get straight into the SMX playoffs. And first I want to talk about why they exist to begin with. And the further we get into this, like for myself, further sort of cements the idea that the sport as it was pre SMX was not enough. It wasn't enough of a package to be able to sell to NBC Sports or any other major sports broadcaster in order to have a solid like with continuity through the entire season it's not that long ago that we had outdoors on OLN or we had it outdoors were on I think like the last year of it I think it was maybe 2021 there was like the Ride TV app or something along that like it was or no, maybe no, I'm misquoting that but there was an app or it was few
It had to
of
transition to that because what
yeah
was it? Mav TV dropped the ball or something
that's
like that.
right.
And
It was
yeah,
a Mav TV. It was a
we're
whole
having to watch
thing.
four motos on three different platforms or
Yeah,
networks, whatever. Yeah.
it's not that long ago.
No, it really wasn't.
But when it comes to motocross, when you take someone to an event, that's not difficult to sell them on. You see the bikes flying through the air. It is absolute poetry in motion when you see a motocross racer do what they do. But from a broadcast standpoint, it can be very tricky because our sport is very unique. We have situations where the championship is over before the season is done. That happens almost every year in at least one of the classes where you get somebody dominant who just wins enough or wins so much so that the final round is not necessary to decide that championship. That, from a broadcast standpoint, is an absolute nightmare. When the thing that everyone cares about is already done, why are we still watching? It's the same reason why people turn off an NFL football game or even an NCAA football game, which is a reason why that sport's changing as well, is that when it's 47 nothing, why am I still watching? The fact that in our sport we have essentially two different disciplines. We have supercross and we have motocross that are very different. And there's been athletes that excel at one and struggle at another or are amazing at both by some way, shape, or form. But more often than not, we've had someone win outdoors and then have someone else win indoors. And then the debate is left to those who bench race as to who really is the best this year and who was more dominant. Like so when you leave that sort of that discussion up to Joe Public, that also is a hurdle to get over when you're trying to sell an executive over at NBC Sports as to why they should carry the sport through the entire calendar. There's so many things to sort of understand, and hey, why don't we have like sort of like a big finale end of the year? Like how often have we had a season where the last race of the year is at Steel City, Pennsylvania, and Ricky Carmichael has a 110 point lead, and it's kind of it like for those in the know, it's kind of cool to see RC wrap up another perfect season, but from a broadcast point, it's really difficult. And and that's exactly why we needed to have this. And they're not done tweaking this thing. They're not done like kind of shaping and molding it to what it's going to become. But we have the 3 round SMX playoffs, and yes, there's some gimmicks here and there. But this is what was necessary to get us what we have now, which is more races on NBC Sports on the big network, and having basically one login and password to watch every race in North America all year long.
Yeah, and it was definitely something that needed to happen. And like you said, they're not done tweaking it. I mean, we're in year
They
three of
can't
the
be.
playoffs right now. I think we're still at least another 3, maybe 4 years from, really refining it to get it to where we don't have to make a whole bunch of changes each time. But yeah, to your point, those years, mainly with Ricky, a little bit with James, or Villapoto, it did get boring and it took away from, having to watch the last 2, 3 years, at least on the 450 side. The 250 class or the 125 class was always still pretty good for the most part, other than when James was in it. We never, it was usually coming down to the final rounds. And then here lately with Dig in the last few years, it's been, wrapped up with a round or so to go. But yeah, it definitely needed to happen. I think there's some things that need to be fixed. Maybe not necessarily. I mean, there's definitely things that need to be fixed within the playoff system. I think there's things that need to be fixed away from the playoff system for the summer as well as the winter and the spring to maybe change up how we get into the final playoffs, maybe with scheduling and stuff like that. But no, it definitely needed to happen. And as far as the TV stuff, I'm not the biggest fan of changing up from, how it is. Like I'm more of a traditional just from, the era that I grew up in. I think something that maybe could have helped do that without, doing playoffs, but to make both series, the Supercross and the outdoor series, more compelling to watch to the end and make it more competitive to the end would have been to change the point structure, which they did a few years ago, and I think they did it. I think it was for the worse, but make it, tighter to where every position did count instead of, you get 7 or 8 races into the year and you can kind of start playing the game a little bit. You don't need a win, you don't need a second. You can take a third here, you take a fourth here, whatever. But if you tightened it up to where, okay, a seventh isn't going to do it, I need to get fifth, then it makes it to where it has to bring it down to the final round and make it more competitive and make it more exciting. I think if that would have been, you know, the format, I think if the point structure would have been formatted to that method, then we wouldn't have needed the playoff system. But regardless, we have it right now the way it is. And I think, like we've discussed, as we keep going over the next few years, I think it's going to get more refined. We're going to get a little bit better system, not only for the playoffs themselves, but at how do we get to the playoffs as a whole throughout, the first 8 months of the year.
Absolutely. And like this whole the playoffs, it will continue to evolve. I would like to see it go be a little longer, honestly. Like even if that means losing a national, having 10 nationals and 16 supercrosses, and now we have 5 rounds of playoffs. That to me is a little bit more well-rounded. As far as just how like when things get serious at the playoffs, there it's not so detrimental that if you happen to have a bad first round that your playoffs is basically just null. And we have a couple of guys that are leaving the first round, and that's basically what they're looking at in the form of Justin Cooper, who's only 11 points back. He can still climb his way back into it, but Malcolm Stewart, for the most part, is like his 2025 is essentially done, right?
Yeah, and to your point, what you had said about the number of races, I think 10 outdoors would be good. I know we're already down to 11 from the original 12 that we've had
Just get
forever.
rid of
I,
Paula. No one likes going to
I think
Paula.
it sounds like the riders would be fine with that from everything we've heard over the years. But yeah, 10 nationals would be good. I would say maybe go to 14 or maybe go to even 12 supercrosses. And I'm looking at it from the rider standpoint, give the guys a break because when you think about it from the second week of January, or the first weekend of January, which is usually right, that 7, 8, 9, 10 day of the first month of the year, to the end of September, I mean, that's 9 months and 31 races. So I mean, 36, 37 weekends, and we race 31 times. And that doesn't give anybody really a break. It gives them a weekend off, but that doesn't give them a break. And lately the discussion has been, look at the World Championship Series, the MXGP Series. They start in early February and run through September. So
Right.
that's 8 months, and it's only 20 races. So 32, 33 weekends and twenty races, not including Motocross of Nations. That's, what is that, 3 months worth of time off, essentially, or yeah, about 10, 11 weeks of time off during all that for these guys to rest and recover. And I think they even take a full like 3 weeks or 4 weeks during the middle of the season where there isn't a race. And the guys get to rest, recover, relax. They still train, but they don't go hardcore training like they do, preseason. I think that's something that, over here we need to take a hard look at, not only for like I get why we haven't done it. More races means more money and etc. But as far as the longevity of these riders are concerned, I mean, we're seeing it right now. The attrition rate hasn't been very good this year.
Yeah, and that's why we're seeing so many guys being taken out of these wild card races. I always find it funny. Like the reason why it's called wild card, I guarantee, is just the fact that to an executive over at NBC, wild card is something they've heard before. Last chance qualifier is not something they've heard before. Even though in my mind, like I'm someone who grew up with stick and ball sports and motorsports, last chance qualifier is one of the most daunting terminology like terms that you could possibly have. This is the last chance qualifier. This is the LCQ, baby. Like you put up or shut up. Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
I mean,
okay,
I remember.
like I don't even know why they call it the wild card. Like I guess it's you're like if you're coming out of that wild card. Like I think it's originally a baseball thing, as far as I knew, because
Baseball, I mean, Major League
NFL
Baseball
stole it
uses
from
it, NFL
baseball.
uses it. Yeah, Major
Yeah.
League Baseball uses it, NFL uses it.
NFL never
Um,
had it before though. The NFL expanded their playoffs to have that like sort of like the 1 week, and that's why more teams get a bye now. Uh
right.
like yeah, and like I guess the NHL also has like the wild card spot, but like that just essentially determines your seeding coming into the playoffs.
Yeah, I
But
mean,
yeah,
I,
like
I get why they
it's just
use
a
that
term to
term, just because they,
people know what
if
it
we can
is.
pull people from outside of the industry that are more familiar with the stick and ball sports, they hear that term. Okay, cool. Here's, X amount of guys that aren't in it yet. They got to race their way in. Okay, great. The problem, I think, where everything's going to get lost in translation is when, instead of, two guys like we have for our typical last chance qualifiers in Supercross, or four guys, however many it is now, you take five or six because a handful of those guys didn't get automatically seated in, even with all the injuries that we had. Then it's like, okay, we're taking, when Wygant and the guys have to explain, okay, we're taking six out of this race to fill a 22 rider field because guys are hurt. There's a lot that could get lost in translation there for the non-hardcore fan. And I think, I don't know if it's right to seed the next guys in. I don't know what the perfect solution would be to that. I mean, there probably isn't a perfect solution, but I don't know what the better solution would be off the top of my head to do that. But I mean, it's something. Obviously, it's in the terminology for the non-hardcore fan that's just coming into this to hopefully hear a familiar term and then stick around.
Right, yeah, and essentially that's exactly what it is. And for the purists that are like, oh, like I feel like this sport's not for me anymore. If there's something out there that you don't, that is either like you don't understand it or you don't feel like it's for you, it's not.
Yeah,
You know what I
I
mean?
agree
Like
with that. I mean, we see
it's
that we
not like there's tons of things in hockey that I'm like, why do they have numbers on the fronts of their helmets in hockey? I don't need that. Oh, that's not for me. That's for the people who just showed up.
right. Well, and we've seen that over the last. I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years with NASCAR. They did their playoff format. They changed up some other stuff as far as like, the individual race themselves, trying to cater to essentially the younger demographic.
Hmm.
But all that ended up doing was alienating the older demographic that's been watching for 30, 40, 50 years.
Yeah. And their
And
viewership plummeted.
it's still going down. I mean, I remember a few years ago they were advertising on television tickets for the first race of the year, the Daytona 500, which is the race for NASCAR. Never once, maybe not never once, but definitely, I mean, since before my time, did they ever have to advertise on television or radio, anything?
Hmm.
Hey, we got tickets 4 days before the race. That never happened at Daytona before. And I mean, I think the only reason they're back to not having to do that now is because one, they expanded the seating on the front stretch with the paddock and the mezzanine and all that stuff. They took away the grandstands on the back straightaway, so everything's on that front straightaway by the tri-oval and the finish line and so
Right.
forth. But they essentially did take away seating, so they didn't have to say, "Hey, we've got extra seats left."
Exactly. And so like there's like we said off the hop, there's a lot of tweaking that needs to happen or and will happen with this playoff format. Um, what we do have is an incredible amount of racing to be happening. And yeah, unfortunately this last weekend, um we had a rain delay and we had a lightning delay. And you know what also had an hour-long lightning delay? The NFL, their first game of the year had an hour-long delay in the middle of the night or in the middle of their game. That actually completely derailed the entire game. There's no scoring that happened after that weekend. I think they probably knew that I bet on the over, but yeah, somewhat like so the word had gotten out that I might have made $10 off of that football game, so they made sure that I was not going to. Um, but yeah, I'm honestly like as far as I know, and as far as I've ever been in contact with the people over at Feld and the SMX track crew and everybody over there, every single weekend they do everything they can to put on an amazing show, and they, for the most part, will stop at just about nothing to be able to do exactly that. First of all, had they gone forward with the races, you're talking about a lot of busted up motorcycles. You're like talking a lot of blown up engines. They would have completely had to like knock all the jumps down, so the track would have been passable. So it's not entertaining to watch. That all aside, they also lost their window of daylight, and I guess shame on Feld for not thinking that they were going to have such a long delay and that they should rent light banks to be able to do that. And Mathis said that on his review show as well. Is that yeah, like it's just it's an unforeseen circumstance in a situation that you didn't really like you it's almost impossible to imagine that that's one of the things that you're gonna have to contend with. Um and honestly I was pretty disappointed to see just um the venom that gets spit by these fans that yeah, I know you spent your money and things didn't work out, just absolutely disgusting things being said online in the comment section. Um, although I will say, if there was 200 people that said something mean in the comments to Feld or to the SMX league at large, that also means that many thousands of people who did attend didn't have anything negative to say, at least not in the comments. So I guess that's a feather in your cap as well.
Yeah, and I mean, I get it. And from a fan standpoint, whether you were at the race or you were watching on TV, yeah, I mean, you want to see the guys race, and yeah, the people at the race, they definitely paid good money to go and watch that. But and I've seen some stuff and heard some stuff, from people that were there. They're like, yeah, we didn't really see lightning, or if they did see lightning, it wasn't that close. It could have kept going and so forth. But I mean, the thing that people don't take into consideration is, yeah, the chance of one rider being struck by lightning, of any of those riders being struck by lightning, or anybody there individually being struck by lightning, yeah, the chances are really, really, really low. The problem is that those grandstands were full on metal.
Yeah,
And let's just say, you know, the lightning struck anywhere in those grandstands. You're not talking about one person, you're talking about thousands or hundreds at least that were in
right.
those grandstands. That's a mass casualty deal. And nobody, not one person, not one business is ever going to take that kind of risk with with that many people when they don't have to. Did it deter from the playoffs? A little bit. Are we only racing five motos instead of six? Yes. Could that have
Yeah,
changed? Could that running that second moto have changed the outcome of the whole thing? Absolutely. But we gotta have a little bit of common sense here with safety. I mean, we've been seeing it all year long with stopping races with red flags. I mean, we saw at the last motocross at Butts Creek. There were two red flags in the 250 class, one each moto. The second one was for Beaumare. We gotta if it looks like it's a bad situation, we gotta address it. We can't just hide it underneath the rug. Yeah, does it suck for the casual fan? Sure, but what if it was you? What if you were laying there, or what if you were
right.
racing and something happened? You still want to complain, or you want to say good call?
Exactly. Or what if you were Cullen Park or Lux Turner who goes out there on a privateer Yamaha or a KTM or a Honda and now you have 6 days to try and get this bike back together that got destroyed by racing after a deluge. Like there was that much rain, you know what I mean?
Well, I mean,
There's
yeah, yeah, and you're going back to, I mean, without the additional chemical factor, I mean, you're essentially going back to Limegate in San Diego a few years ago. Yeah, there
right.
was no lime in the track, but you're essentially talking the same thing. I mean, that track in Charlotte was hard enough to get around before the rain.
Exactly. And so actually let's talk about the track a little bit. Soft dirt, super soft dirt. I think they obviously like they had some rain. It's the southeast on in the fall. There's in the summertime. You're gonna get rain on a regular basis. I think they honestly managed it as well as they possibly could have. Lots of sawdust mixed in. Yes, it was soft. It's a challenging track. These are the best racers in the world. Um, like you're gonna see those nose pick situations like that we saw with was it Melanowski and
That one was bad.
that one was and that was in practice too. Hammaker had
Thank
one.
goodness that was as slow as it was.
Right, yeah, and
Because we
honestly he
saw
walked
one.
out of that one. He finished the session.
Well, I mean, we saw one worse out of Juju, and that was at high
Right.
speed.
Yeah, and now Julian Beaumere, obviously, he's dealing with a burst fracture and as well as two other fractures to vertebrae in his back. Um, Honestly, it's going to have to be a time will tell thing as far as whether or not he's going to be able to come back to a level of performance that he was so highly touted for. I feel like it was just yesterday that we were leaving the second or third round of Supercross, and the guy had so much wind in his sails. He's rocking that brand new One Industries gear. Everything was clicking, and it's just been everything but that since which is really disappointing to see. It's hard to watch. Just nothing seems to be going right for that kid. Um, if he was cleared, he cleared concussion protocol. There's no reason why he shouldn't have been out there. And he's not the only one who crashed on that section. It was very tricky. It was a three onto a table, table over, and then stepping off, go yeah, stepping off, go two and then three out. And there's a lot of guys who were just they were hanging themselves up on that three out, or going long and ending up kind of endoing out of that thing. And yeah, like he's like I said, he's not the only one who had problems with that thing. He just happened to get the worst of it.
No, and I've had this discussion numerous times as far as like the track conditions themselves and what to, as far as fixing them. And during Supercross, it's a 3 hour window from start to finish. From the first heat race to the final main. It's essentially 2.5 hours really to get all the races in. Sometimes we go over red flags and such, but there's always the issue from the track crew's perspective, not enough time to fix the things that really should be fixed, or not being able to fix all of them. And, that was evident with Charlotte. The dirt was even softer, so they had even less time to fix the track in between, motos and stuff. I I've had this discussion, like I've said. I wish the solution would be this. I understand, and especially with the first race the other night being live on NBC, which is great. That absolutely needed to happen, as far as getting the exposure out there, have the thing in prime time on a major network instead of Peacock. You know, that needed to happen as far as the viewership goes. And but I think the solution to be, let's model if it's on Peacock, let's model the Formula One system. If it's on NBC, then let's stick to how it is. But as far as if it's just on Peacock, as far as the Formula One system goes, let's do a 4 hour window, give the track crew more time to fix things so we have a more raceable track, a safer track, but we still have to have the racing done inside of that 4 hour window. If we're into the 450 main and there's still 3 minutes left plus a lap, but we're at 4 hours, checkered flag comes out. That's just the way it is. But I think we need to do something, especially with all the controversy around that scoop tire and just how powerful those bikes are, particularly the 450s. They're chewing up the tracks way more than the two strokes were back in the day. But I think, increasing the time would help out a lot. The opposite side of that coin is, yeah, people are in the stands. They need to go home. We're racing at night, but I start an hour earlier, still get people out of there at 10 so they can get home. I don't know. I mean, I think there's things that could be done. I think there's things that should be done. Will it ever happen? I don't know, but I think that's something that could be looked into, as modeling that Formula One format.
Yeah, certainly. There's some tweaks that need to happen. And they're gonna get this thing right. And it still might not look exactly how you and I want it to look. But it'll be the new step of the sport moving forward. Personally, I would like to see even if we have like a last national of the year, like why can't we have something like Troy, Ohio, which was God, that maybe that was like the original Super Motocross, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
Like in so many
that
ways,
track in Steel City, honestly.
yeah, Steel City had that. They had that long straightaway where guys had to slow down and basically had like full on rhythm sections in the middle of a or middle of a motocross season. That was always super neat, and I think that that might be something that needs to be revisited. So. Let's talk 450s. Jet Lawrence, to the surprise of absolutely no one, took the whole shot and led all 12 laps. And when he was sprinting away at the end of the first lap, I was like, uh-oh, that's a problem. And he did exactly what I think pretty much everyone expected him to do. Um, he was extremely fast in qualifying. He got himself a great start in the first race. I think he probably would have done something similar in the second race, but we never got to find that out. Yeah, one of the fastest lap times on the track. I think the fastest ended up being Hunter Lawrence, if I'm not mistaken. But either way, yeah, like as advertised performance by the purple plate holder with the number one on there. He will be your points leader moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, he did exactly what he's been doing all summer long, and what he did,
For the last 4 years.
yeah, in the couple Supercrosses earlier this year. I mean, he managed it. He got out front. He did exactly what he needed to do, and pulled the gap that he was fine managing with. That 3 to 4 second gap that he's comfortable just maintaining, and rode it in. And whatever he does during the week, with Hunter and with Johnny O working with those guys, they've got they've got it down. I mean, I don't know if we've ever really seen anybody that's more refined, across the spectrum on a motorcycle than what Jet is. But yeah, he did what exactly he's been doing the last couple of years, and it's hard for anybody to match that. I mean, I wish we would have seen a little bit better start out of some of the other guys like Chase and like Kenny, to maybe mix it up. But I mean, he gets the starts. Honda has that 450 dialed on their start map, and they make it easy for him.
Yeah, no, he's certainly tuned in that way. Uh, if if Tomac doesn't go down, does Sexton get him?
I don't know. I don't know. Eli finally was riding like the Eli that we expected. Was it beast mode to get to Jet? No, but it was definitely more than what we had seen from him during the outdoors. I mean, I don't know what happened if he was sick, but I mean, ever since that moto win at High Point in June, we never saw that again. We never saw a good performance. Maybe one moto at Washougal, but other than that, Eli just wasn't there during the summer. But he finally showed what we all were waiting to see out of him. And in that one moto on Saturday night, and unfortunately he crashed, which we don't really see out of him. But it was definitely more than what we were seeing during the summer.
Certainly, and I guess a crash like that, at least he's pushing the envelope because when Eli Tomac rides within his limits, he doesn't put the bike down too often. I don't want to oversimplify the situation or the current career status of Eli Tomac. But I see a lot of shades of the very tail end of Jeremy McGrath's historic career. A guy who was still extremely fast, extremely skilled but wasn't able to. He was no longer at the absolute peak of what he was or what was needed to win at that time. Like the back half of the 2001 season, and then rolling into 2020 or 2002, like still top three Supercross racer in the world at that point, but miles away from both Jeremy McGrath or Chad Reed and Ricky Carmichael at the time. It's just that next step has been made. Jet Lawrence is that athlete who's leading the way, and yeah, Chase Sexton over on the weekend proved that even though he might not love his KTM as much as KTM wishes he would, yeah, he's still able to get the job done. Puts it in for a second place and moves forward with the championship. Looking at the championship standings, it's they're separated by 9 points, and going into the final two rounds, Chase Sexton and Jet Lawrence have a kind of a table set for two. Yeah, Justin Cooper's right there, and Eli Tomac's not too far behind. But this is a short series. This is a short playoff championship. Who do you think out of the top five has any chance of ruffling the feathers of a guy like Jet Lawrence right now?
I Other than Chase, just because it is Chase, I'd say Hunter. I mean Eli. Unless Eli, well, Eli's not even in the top five, but um,
Eli's
Cooper's run
fourth.
down. Yeah, I mean Justin's run down,
Hmm.
and or yeah, Eli is fifth. Yeah, that's right. My bad. But Eli just hasn't shown the consistency. I'd love for him to prove me wrong this weekend in St. Louis. But other than that, I think it's Hunter and Chase, and mainly because those two have taken the time off this year. Chase maybe not in the way that we all thought he would have, but he did take time off, and I think he's not really happy with KTM or the team anymore, but he's still got that fire in him to like I'm gonna go and beat this guy one more time. Even if I'm not able to do it regularly, I'm gonna at least do it right now. And Hunter, yeah, the cards need to fall a little bit his way more so than just straight up. Um, because Jet's just that good compared to
Yeah,
Hunter. And I hate even being like that, but that's just the way it is. I'm not
it's just
being,
better. Yeah.
opinionated. It's just facts. I mean, you look at the numbers, that's just the way it is. But Hunter can do it. I think he needs to have a little bit more aggression. I think he needs to disregard the fact that Jet's his brother. I think once he gets that out of his head, I think Hunter turns into a completely different racer. But I don't know if that's ever going to happen unless Hunter finally decides to step out on his own and go a completely different color, different personnel. I mean, I'm sure Dazzy would still be in his corner, but as far as everything else, I mean, I don't see Hunter being a serious contender while he's still under the same exact program, sun up to sundown as Jet.
No, I genuinely see them as a 1-2 punch for whatever team that they race for the entirety of their career. I don't mean to besmirch the good name of Hunter Lawrence. He's one of the best racers on the planet right now, but his younger brother is consistently just a tick better every single weekend, and I don't think you can really argue that until we see some evidence otherwise. Um, it was a really big bummer to see obviously Cooper Webb defend. The Supercross champion from this year. Not in the best of not he just wasn't his best this weekend. Like obviously he's dealing with like he's recovering from a knee surgery. Um I don't want to say he's just coming out and just riding around out there. But it does seem like his claws have been clipped a little bit. There's not as much bark in that bite when it comes to Cooper Webb. I don't foresee him being a major factor down the stretch here.
No, and the thing is, and somebody pointed this out earlier. Um, I was listening or talking to somebody, whatever, and somebody pointed this out. He's never come into the playoffs 100%.
Yeah,
It's always been either an
a lot of
injury
guys.
or a bike change. I mean, he had what? Well, I mean, even when he made that bike change, he had more time on that bike where he should have been better than what he was when he came back on the Yamaha after he was riding KTM earlier in the year, and that he and KTM split ways. But yeah, he still never came in. He's still never come into the playoffs 3 years now where he's been 100% comfortable. And this year it's no different. He had a little bit of surgery on that on his knee. And so he started from the eight ball again. So I don't know if we can really expect anything out of him or expect anything high out of him anyway. Um, Going in, just he hasn't he wasn't ready. He wasn't ready coming in. He wasn't 100%. He didn't have the enough amount of time on the bike. I think he mentally was ready to go, but I think he lost a lot of just timing and just coordination on the bike, just being off like he was. But I think he was ready to go. I don't think him processing and all that was just gonna match up to his eagerness to mix it up with Jet.
Certainly. So I'm looking forward to seeing what comes from this weekend in St. Louis when it comes to the 450 class. Let's talk 250s, and I guess we're about to close a chapter on what's been a pretty damn good 250 career. I think it was pretty funny. About 2 weeks ago, they posted like an all-time wins for like Hayden compared to like guys like Ricky, guys like Stu, guys like RV. I think Ryan Villapoto, for I don't even know why. Maybe I need to start beating this drum more. Is not regarded as much of a animal as he was in the 250 or a 450. He's one of very few guys who ever won the championship as a rookie, something that Hayden didn't do. Stewart and Carmichael did that in both, not in Supercross, obviously. It's funny, actually, all three didn't win their Supercross championship, but they all won outdoors as a 16-year-old. And actually, Hayden, if I'm not mistaken, did Hayden not come out as a 17-year-old or almost 18?
No, he came out as a 16-year-old.
16-year-old, but that like well, we don't talk about those first two nationals. Those we don't talk about those,
No,
right?
I mean he was still 16 when his full rookie year started because he was a B class rider that year at Loretta's.
Right, but he would like when's his birthday?
I don't know when his birthday actually is, but no, because he just turned 19 this year.
You just turned 19 now? Okay.
He just turned it was like February or March when he turned 19, I think.
I don't know. Yeah, 19. He's January
So 16.
10th.
So yeah, 16.
He's
So
about
yeah,
to be 20.
his rookie Supercross year was he was turning 17.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
okay. So yeah, you were right. Yeah.
yeah, so then that's not to besmirch the good name of Hayden Deegan. He's
No.
got championships both indoors and out. He's got back-to-back outdoor championships, which you are a bad dude if you have that. Um, I just think it's kind of funny that there's fans out there who basically have they've crowned him the GOAT, and he just doesn't. he didn't win as much as those other guys. I don't understand. What do you mean he's the GOAT when there's other guys who were greater in their time, more dominant, more dynamic, more of everything. Like uh James Stewart sat on the line at Budds Creek at the first round that he attended in 2003, pulled all of his tear-offs off and went, deuces, I
And
don't
that was his
need
first
these.
race back after a broken collarbone.
Yeah. And proceeded to win both motos by a fucking country mile.
Right.
Like and then so in that and like in our don't you remember I believe it was I want to say it's Washougal or maybe it's Unadilla when Carmichael in 1999 goes back to race his third year in the 125 class and he goes by Nathan Ramsey like he's standing still and is like yelling at him and like looking over at him like this is easy. Like this isn't the first time we've had a guy, basically a man amongst boys in the 125 class or the 250 class, who's just like toying with him. Like this is like to me, this is not new. And like honestly, like RV never really ever played that card too much. He was more of a quiet confidence guy his entire career. But I don't know. Obviously, like the guy is a bit of a lightning rod with the microphone and might get some hate for this. But seriously, like when you look at the numbers, it's not close.
No, and I think I'd love to know what everybody that says that is already considering him one of the greats when he hasn't even graduated out of the 250 class yet. I'd love
Yeah.
to know what their criteria is because he's if I'm throwing out a wild guess as to why they would say that, I think it's just in the matter of which he's doing it, not the fact that because he's thrown races away, he's thrown motors away, supercross, motocross, combined. But when he does win, it's in the way that he's doing it, whether he gets the start or he doesn't, but he manages and he does a lot of similarities to like how Ryan Dungey did back in the day. He just wears those guys down, but he also does it with flat out speed and tenacity. And the 250 guys, I mean, the only guy that we've seen really in the last year and a half probably that's stepped up to that level is Joe, and he can match Hayden. He hasn't been able to do it at least in outdoors like straight up. Usually Hayden has problems. I'm not going to say that blanketly just because one of the races I can't remember which race it was, but Joe did take it to him both motos without Hayden having problems. I mean, Joe was the guy that day, but Joe does it in such a smooth and methodical way where Hayden's just bulldogging it the whole time, even for as little of a guy as he is. I think, but like back to the original point, I think that's maybe where people are going is just the way that he does it, the fact that he can do it from anywhere. But I think it's also just like you said, when he talks, people are noticing that more. They're like, well, he says what he says, but he's not wrong when he says it. He might sound bad when he says it, but he's not wrong when he says it. And that's I think so it's keeping that conversation a little bit more going to where his writing style is matching up to everybody else that's ever done it before. Are the numbers there? No. Is the writing personality there? Absolutely.
Right. And I also think that just the sheer saturation that we now have in within social media and the way the sport is covered. Yeah, if you just go tunnel vision and all you see is Hayden Deegan and his jewelry every weekend, then yeah, you just assume that this kid's the best thing since sliced bread. Maybe you maybe you weren't alive in 2004, maybe you had your head in the sand. But last time I checked, I don't remember James Stewart getting beat by Matt Walker on multiple weekends.
No.
Um, you know what I
No,
mean?
and social media aside, I mean, you know, he's not the first one that that conversation's had. I mean, everyone had that conversation about James when he came up. People had that conversation about Travis when he was still in 125s.
Yeah.
people maybe, and I don't think they necessarily had that conversation about Villapoto, but they should have. And had it not been for the injuries, he would have been higher up there. I mean, he still has, as many championships as a lot of the other guys. He's what, second or third all time on the championships list behind
Oh yeah.
Ricky. But, I mean,
If not
RV
for
did it.
injuries, he like
The Supercross wins wouldn't have been there, but the outdoor wins absolutely would have been there.
oh for sure. Like
Yeah.
we're talking the 2009 outdoor season, he misses the entire thing aside from Glen Helen because of a knee. He misses the entire 2010 season because of a broken leg. He misses the entire 2012 season because of a knee again.
He misses
Like
2014 because of a knee.
yeah, 2020, yeah, 2014, he misses because no, that's just like was that a
No,
no, that was just
2014 he no
he just
2014 he had the massive lead in Supercross, and at Seattle he buckles his knee.
no, that's 12.
No,
14 is his last year in the sport, and he led all 80 of the last four, all 80 laps of the last four Supercrosses of his career, and then didn't race outdoors.
I thought that was when I thought
Nope.
that was 2011 when he got that new when Cowie brought that 2012 out and he just smoked everybody even worse than he already was.
That was at the end of yeah, he did that in outdoors. They
Right.
brought that out. And then in 12, he does his knee, and then that's the year where Dungy at first it's James kicking everyone's ass on a Suzuki, and then
Okay.
he gets knocked out at Thunder Valley, and then it's the Dungy show featuring Mike Alessi on a Moto Concept Suzuki who I think got one moto off of him at Washougal, and then Mike was trying to get a high five from Ryan, and Ryan was like, "Please leave me alone." Um, and then yeah, 13. Villapoto comes back, wins the championship. I believe that's the year. Yeah, that's the only time that are like that's when Dungy was defending the championship on his KTM, wasn't able to do so. And then he doesn't race the 2014 outdoor season. He sort of just I think he may have claimed some sort of injury, but everyone knew he wasn't injured. He just didn't want to ride out his last year at Kawasaki, or maybe it was 2 years. So they made a deal that he was going to race the MXGP.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of my
It's
favorite stats, by the way, from Ryan Villapoto. The last four races he won, he led every single fucking lap.
right.
Like,
It's hard to keep track of all those years
mhm,
with all
it
those
is.
guys.
Honestly, I struggle with the 250 class in that era. Like I could easily be wrong about certain championships in around there, especially East Coast and West Coast 250s, because that's like the tail end of when uh you just pencil pro circuit in for a couple of championships on like a championship on either coast, and then
Yeah, that's
uh
absolutely true.
yeah, like I was like that Star Racing was still sponsored by like My Plash or some other bullshit back in the day, or DNA Shred Sticks or something.
Right.
Back when the Yamaha 250F was still carbureted until 2013.
Hmm.
That was insane. But yeah, let's talk 250s in with the SMX playoffs here. Hayden Deegan, he's just like like I know Hammaker like faded because like he faded like out of the fact that he's probably been off the bike a fair bit like recently.
That
Plus,
was a bad fade though. That was
dude,
you don't you don't you don't have a lead like that and then fade with
he's got
just
to be
what,
hurting.
3 laps left, 4 laps left, something like that. Like
Something's got like
something's
that's I
I
could
know he's
text him,
had
but Jesus Christ,
I know he's
that's
had
not a fitness fade. That's a this hurts and I can't keep going.
well, I know when he was like in amateurs, he there was he should have been pro 2 or 3 years before he did,
Yeah, he
but
got that Team
injury
Green ride and just kept getting hurt.
kept getting hurt. I think he ended up with Epstein or chronic fatigue, one of those two. I think that was part of it, along with I think he did his elbow.
Yeah,
But
his
yeah,
last two
something,
laps, 204s.
yeah, I mean, you don't
That's
do that.
4 seconds different.
That's an illness or something. I mean, if that was something, like a joint or a bone or something, he would have been able to finish that race off. That sounds like an illness to me. Just just getting massively tired after 20 minutes, and he shouldn't be doing that. And I don't know if it's just, I don't know. I don't know if he was already running into the ground during the season
Very
or
well could have been.
a
I
combination of the injuries since he missed races this year. I don't know.
I gotta think that it was a pain management situation. I don't know enough about the situation. I haven't te I should actually text Seth and find out. He probably wouldn't get back to me in the 5 minutes left in the podcast that we have here. Um, a good ride from Levi Kitchen. Kind of a breath of fresh air based after like a pretty butt ugly 2025 for him. All things considered, he's had some highlights, but just kind of never really got settled this year. I noticed like he just never like obviously he had the huge crash at Daytona and just hasn't really been the same guy since. You've seen flashes of brilliance, and did he not win an overall or a
No, he
nat?
didn't. He didn't win an
Or
overall. He didn't even win a moto.
yeah,
He
he went 2-2 though at Redbud, I think.
Yeah, he still didn't. No, I don't even
Yeah, I
think he
think
went
he,
2-2. I think he had one good one, one bad one. I think that was the
mm,
story of his
whole year.
summer, pretty much. But no, like you said, that Daytona crash really, I think
That
a
was
lot of
so
people need to kind
scary.
of that. I think people need to really kind of take stock of that and be like, hey, we really shouldn't hold Levi to, such a high mark on the pole just because of that Daytona crash. Because that's I can't believe he ended up as good as he did for how bad that crash was. I mean, I know he still had some gnarly injuries, but that should have been so much worse.
Exactly. Joe Shimoda ends up third. I'm of the mind that if he doesn't go down while kind of catching Seth's rear wheel there, I think he wins that race. Joe is on one. And when he's on one, he's very almost Kevin Windham like uh tough to beat when he's just clicking on all cylinders. I think he had a real chance at winning that moto.
Yeah, I think he definitely wins that moto. I mean, he catches Seth at the end. If he doesn't get him before, with Sans crash, obviously. But he's been riding so good this year. It was hard to bet against him. But yeah, making that mistake and catching that tough block and getting himself tossed off the motorcycle doesn't help his case whatsoever. But he still came back for a third, and that still keeps him in the conversation. Since that was only what 3 points or 5 points that he lost in the grand scheme of things. But now we're going into St. Louis and Vegas, double and triple points. So I mean, one win at either one of those. Well, he's got to win St. Louis to get himself, probably even or at least within a point or two of Hayden going into Vegas where it's winner take all. But yeah, he's got to. I think and I don't think that that crash is going to ruin his confidence for this weekend, but I think he does need to. He at least needs to stay on the bike. But I think should he stay on the bike, he wins this weekend.
I agree. And like I'm a little bit curious as to why like they're doing the two moto format at all of these playoff rounds. Why not just score points for every race like outdoors?
Because I mean, if you look at the last 2 years in either of those classes with Hayden and with Jet, I think if they scored individual per moto, but they also did the double and triple, then we get a more than likely we get a race win or we get a SMX
What if just the
clinch.
last moto is for double points so that like it's there's no way it's like completely out of reach.
Well, I mean they could still do it that way, but I also think, if they did it the way you're talking about, if Hayden does what he did and Jed does what he did and the points separate out as much, then you can mail in the last moto or two with a fourth or a fifth without having to go for it.
Yeah, but
And
we already have that with triple crowns.
we do have it with the Triple Crowns, but we don't. I mean, back to our point with the NBC execs,
Yeah.
they don't want to. If they're gonna buy this, then they don't want it to be wrapped up early. They want a million eyes watching to the very
Hmm.
last lap
Yeah, you're right.
of the championship.
Yeah, I just feel like it's almost impossible to have the in six motos be like unless something wild happens. It's in six motos, it would be almost impossible to have someone like the second place mathematically eliminated from the championship. And I think it would just create like if all of a sudden it went from a three race series to a six race series, like now to me in my like psychologically it just seems like there's a lot more racing happening or there's more variability happening. Um Whereas now we have like even if they had two motos, there's a lot of sort of like, oh, that guy had a good moto and a bad one, but in the end it wasn't so bad or it wasn't so great. You know what I mean? So like I just those I'm just sort of like thinking on my feet here as far as changes that can be made to make the sport or make the playoffs maybe a little bit more like honestly simplified. Before we finish off, last thing I have on the 250 class. Anybody have anything for Hayden Deegan before the end of this thing?
I mean, it'd be Joe. Joe's the only one that's shown, on a somewhat regular basis that he can run with Hayden. Um, we we thought for about 18 minutes, 17 minutes that Seth could be a player in there, and we saw what happened. The only other guy that maybe could mix it up, at least for a moto, I don't know about two in a night, but would be Cole Davies. And we're going to St. Louis this weekend, and that dirt really allows for somebody like Cole to step up. Definitely for Joe to step up because Joe really thrives on that, kind of tackier conditions. And I don't think it's going to rut up nearly as badly as how Charlotte did. But I think traditionally Hayden doesn't do great on the more stable dirt. He's always been such a good hard pack rider, slicker conditions. I say that despite, how Charlotte was and he, rode through and beat everybody for that one moto. But in the Supercross series, I think he's not necessarily struggled, but that just hasn't been his cup of tea. And maybe I'm wrong, but I think yeah, I'd say Joe and Davies would be the ones to throw the biggest challenge at him for these last two races.
Completely agree with you. I think that it's Joe and I think obviously Hammaker can get in there, but he's obviously going to be a little bit on the mend moving forward. Let's talk SMX next. Combine. We did not get to see them race, but we did get to see them practice, and that had its fireworks as well. We already talked about Ryder Malinowski doing a front flip in the middle of that rhythm section. But if you're Mike Ulrich over at Yamaha or anybody else that works over at Yamaha, you got to be pretty happy to see first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth of the top qualifier, and smack right in the middle there is Cade Johnson, the 177 in your program. Yeah, like leading things off with Cade Manier. Caden Dundee doing Caden Dundee things, even though he was almost 4 seconds a lap slower than Manier. How did Manier get that lap?
I I don't know.
That's 4 seconds. Come
Racetrack.
on, everyone else is like that. That must have been just this like an absolute hero lap slash.
If it goes
Um,
wrong, it's going to go really, really wrong.
yeah, like
Yeah.
that's a flyer if I've ever seen one because the rest of the pack is separated by like a few seconds at most. Most of them are right in the 203, 206 range. Um, but yeah, like did you catch any of those that sessions at all? I don't know.
I didn't get to watch that session. I heard about it and I saw, just I got a little bit of context over group text messages because I was actually filming while their session was going on. Well, actually, while the whole qualifying sessions were going on. But
Right.
um, no, I think with those, like I think the biggest ones and the two to watch for would be Caden Dudney and Enzo Temmerman. I know his time wasn't up there on the qualifying sheet for
Yeah.
that for the sessions, but we saw what he did at Loretta's. You and I were there, and we saw just the really the clinic that he put on this year. And we didn't get to see Dudney there because of the injuries. He got hurt at Daytona. He got hurt again about a month later. So we didn't get to see him. He didn't get to do the qualifying process, but he showed at Unadilla that he's for real. And I think it's those two. And the only reason I'm not throwing Manier into that conversation is because we don't have anything on him. We didn't see him in Loretta's this year because of an injury. All we've seen out of him is the couple of combines that
Combines.
he's
Yeah.
done. The one this year, I think, and he won the one last year, and that's all we have on him. So that's the only reason I'm not throwing him into that conversation. But Obviously, like I said, we saw what Enzo did at Loretta's. We saw what Dudney did at Unadilla, and I think those are the two to watch for. Um, and also, like you said, Cade, I think Cade's biggest disadvantage is just his size. I
Yeah,
think
he
if he
needs to get
was,
on a 450 and
he's got
stay
to get on
there.
a 450, but it's hard to throw. I mean, we're not in a time where you can go Damon Bradshaw and step up with the big boys at 17. No, I don't think these guys can do that anymore. They're having a hard enough time after 3 years, unless you're
Yeah.
Jet or Hayden, still running with the guys that have been in the 250 class for 6, 7 years. That's just not happening anymore. And then the other guy that I look at is in that SMX next is Landon Gibson. And
He
we
had
saw
a
him at
big one in
Loretta's.
practice.
Yeah, he did. And it sounds like he's all good. He'll be fine for this weekend. His thing, his starts haven't been great this year. He did all right at the Redbud Combine, I think. Loretta's his starts weren't there, but he doesn't slow down. He keeps going. Whereas Loretta's, other than Enzo, Landon's times were better than everybody else the last 3 laps of the motos, and that was regular for him all week. Just his starts did him in, but he's one of those guys that just keeps right on going. I mean, same as Dungey. He's got that diesel engine, and I mean, he just keeps right on moving. So he's a third guy that I look for. Obviously, we got Landon Gordon. If he can refine his program a little bit, over the last 8, 9 months, it hasn't quite been there. But those are 4 or 5 guys, obviously, that are at the top of the conversation. And you throw a wild card in with Carson Wood, and you've got a pretty loaded group of guys there.
I said this on Twitter. This is like I think the most stacked class of guys who really want to prove themselves and like or want to lay it all on the line is the SMX next class. You have an absolute murderer's row of guys who not only are have some pressure on them to produce results because that's the
For the younger generation listening, that's a baseball term.
yeah,
Murder's row.
okay. Yeah. But yeah, it's incredible to see like even and like is there a career that has more of a failure to launch slash like kind of just like I want good things for him because he's such a great kid, but like Tiger Wood, like spin the clocks back 24 months ago, everyone was like, look out for Tiger Wood. Like he was getting off super minis on 125, he's kicking everyone's ass. And he goes to Canada to race a Honda, and then he's hurt for a while, and yeah, eighth in times, but and I don't think I don't think he's like done by any means. He's obviously here and putting up some good times, but I think a lot of people have sort of forgot about the guy.
They have. I mean, for valid reasons, like you just pointed out. I want to know where the disconnect happened, why things happened the way it did. Because yeah, like you said, when he was on Super Minis, he was lights out, like at Loretta's and all the big amateur nationals. Same thing on 125s the next year. Nobody could touch that kid. And then I just want to know where the disconnect was, why he didn't get anything down here in the States, why he did go up to Canada to race up there, and he hasn't even really lit the world on fire up there. He's had flashes, don't get me wrong, but he just hasn't been in that championship conversation. And I mean, and you've pointed out, injuries and stuff, but I just want to know what happened throughout the course of the last 3, 4 years where he was one of the next highly touted guys and then nothing.
Well, I think what happened was he was like he's obviously from Australia. He was a Lucas Myrtle athlete
Mhm.
and he got the Red Bull deal. I think that's got to be some sort of connection there. And then he was training at the Sandbox, which is where Dylan Wright and the rest of the Gopher Dunes Honda team does some training preseason. I know they've welcomed a number of their racers down there in the past. I think even they had what's his name, Jacob Piccolo down there. That kid's career turned south big time, but for way different reasons. So I think that was the connection as to why he came to Canada. He actually had a good start of that, like he was kind of getting on to four strokes. He's going to do the Canadian national thing rather than doing your typical like the amateur sort of the parade that
B class,
happened.
A class
Yeah,
system. Yeah.
exactly. So just do that and then injury bug. Like that can literally happen to anyone. It's happened to um Maximus Voland. It has happened to Enzo Lopes. It has happened to tons of guys that just keep getting hurt. Heck, you could open up the 250 class results and see like a handful of guys who, due to injury, have not been the guy that they probably could have been, should have been. Austin Faulkner, Nate Thrasher, Julian, or not Julian Bennick, Daxton Bennick, even Jordan Smith. Like these guys have just been they've seen a surgery table more often than most people will in their entire lives, and they're not even at their 30th birthday.
No, you're
Uh
right. Yeah, no, and you know, and you're absolutely right. And I mean, you go back over the decades. I mean, that list is a mile long. And I'm glad I didn't know the story on Tiger. I'm glad you do because like
yeah.
I never heard. So I that's why I was, framing it the way that I did just because
Yeah, of
I
course.
never knew. Um, but yeah,
It makes a lot more sense though now, doesn't it?
it does. It absolutely does. And you know, you look back at some of the guys that should have, woulda, coulda, shoulda for various reasons, didn't get their shots, whatever. I'd like to see him have another shot or, progress his way through and finally get another shot somewhere down the line, either with, an AEO or a club or a Bar X, something
Yeah.
like
Well,
that.
he's
I'd
in
like for him
Phoenix
to,
Racing now, and I think that's a good spot for him. I think he can race
oh,
East
I
Coast
forgot that he was at
Supercross.
Phoenix. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. I
I
think
forgot that David was helping him out.
him uh and Evan Ferry, East Coast Supercross, Phoenix Honda. That is a great little 1-2 punch. Those guys could be 7 through 10 every weekend and not bat an eye. I
Yeah.
wouldn't be surprised at all.
Did you see Evan's post
I
about
didn't
what
see.
you need to go back on his Instagram and look at his post on what, I mean, aside from the Achilles,
Oh, he had
what
some
else
shit go on this year. Yeah, I heard.
he'd been dealing with his basically his whole life. Like that was gnarly. Like the internal complications that he had his whole life basically that was affecting him not only on the bike but just in his general life. Like that's gnarly. And the fact that he finally figured that out just on a
Yeah.
whim, incidentally, is crazy.
Yeah, no, I have nothing but good things to say about the Ferry family. They've always been great with me, and then yeah, I just want nothing but good things for those guys over there. It was awesome also to see Beckett at the ranch, snap some pictures for the family and sent them all on over there. But yeah, like I'm excited to see this class. I actually really look forward to seeing that class. Last thing I'll say on it though is I know we got to have some different things to appease the powers that be over at NBC or whoever, but could we have gone with anything but purple numbers?
I'd love to know where that decision came from.
I
Just
get that's their color scheme. They do the purple and the fucking lime green, and I hate
that's not the best shade of purple that they could have gone with though.
the lavender purple numbers. Why not just do the on the website? It's like a royal purple. It's a strong purple. Maybe it's not
Yeah.
different enough from black, but that's your color. You went with like this pale lavender shit purple, and like in a sport where typically if you're the level below, what color plates do they usually run?
Black and white.
Yellow. No,
Or
if
yeah,
they're
yellow. Yeah.
why did they not just go with like do you take that queasy crap yellow that they put on Jet Lawrence's number one, take that and then use that as the backgrounds for the SMX next guys
Yeah.
with either black numbers or white numbers. I don't give a flying fuck what you do. Don't do the lavender purple numbers.
Right.
Fuck
Or I mean,
me, that's
if
bad.
Monster Energy is gonna stick around for another 5 years as a title sponsor, go yellow backgrounds with green numbers.
You wouldn't be able to see the numbers at that point.
I mean,
But
you could outline them. You could
What?
still.
Why not just
I don't know.
go
I don't know if the
lime green numbers and the that and but like okay purple numbers, but make it this purple, the purple that I'm seeing at the top banner of their website.
Right. Like they just went way too light on that shade where
Ugh.
it didn't look good. And I don't even know, like,
Like most people
yeah,
aren't going to care.
we were
This is
watching
like such
online
nothing,
with,
but fuck
well, we
me.
were watching, like I saw the pictures and stuff, and I seen little clips in here from, the race day live feed, which are not the same cameras essentially as what we would have seen for the racing. And since we didn't get to see them in the racing, would you have been able, I wonder if how well you would have even been able to spot those numbers on the real broadcast, on the
That's
nighttime
what I'm saying is
broadcast.
that they're actually like they're more pale than if they were just black.
They blended in too well with those white backgrounds.
Yeah, and like we don't spend any time trying to explain to people why do the 250s have black number plates with white numbers and the 450 class is white numbers with black number plates with or black numbers with white number plates. Like we put no work into explaining the hierarchy of colors.
Well, I think for the longest time that was part of the thing every week. And since you mentioned that, I didn't ever really gave it another thought that they haven't been doing that as much for the TV audience. I think they still do it at the race for the in-person crowd. I think they still do it. I think they still do
Yeah,
it
they
as
do
part
the
of the opening
Supercross
ceremonies for
101 or whatever
Supercross.
they call it. Yeah, like it
Yeah,
is like "Ooh, these are
I'm
some
all
things
right
you
with
might
them.
notice.
I'm all right with them not really hinting at that every single week on the TV broadcast, just because you don't see that kind of thing. I mean, we're really the only ones that actually have that differential, but you don't see them as much. They still do it quite a bit, but they're not explaining every single thing every single week like we have these droves and droves of new fans. Treat it like the people watch, like everybody watching knows what's going on. And for the people that don't know what's going on, if we're drawing their attention enough, they'll stay invested and they'll figure it out for themselves and they'll keep watching. But I don't agree with explaining every single thing, every single race on the TV broadcast. I think that makes it worse as far as, you know, trying to, I don't even know how to really word this, but, bringing more people in. I don't think talking down essentially to the people that are there that actually know what's going on, I don't think that helps anything. But back to the original point, you saying about explaining the numbers, I'm all right with them not doing that. I will split off for the other 28 races of the year. Now for the three races, since we're going to change the numbers up for the next kids and run completely different colors than we've ever run in the history of ever.
Yeah.
Yeah, then I'm fine with explaining that because I want to know where that decision came from.
Yeah, it came out of nowhere. I think it was Owen Koval's bike that I saw the first one. I just kind of rolled my eyes. I'm like, of course you gotta like it's not enough that we're gonna explain that this is the amateurs and that this is like for the in-person audience and the TV audience. That is going to be that point is going to be driven home as far as possible. But then we're just gonna or we do the numbers, and I guess we're just like kind of talking about the cosmetics of the sport, which is completely trivial, and who gives a shit? But
Right.
I don't know. I give a shit. I think it looked horrible. Um, I think that there's so many things you could have done that are, in my opinion, cooler. I think the yellow plates, even if you want to do a high vis yellow, I'm not a big fan of the high vis yellow, but some people do like it. I like more of the canary yellow. There's a bunch of bikes that look like Yamahas with yellow plates look unreal. Kawasaki's yellow plates, unbelievable. There's certain like I don't see for whatever reason Suzuki's with the yellow plates. It's kind of a little bit too much yellow. But yeah, I don't know. I like you could have either easily done something other than lavender purple numbers to differentiate that team, or even you could have like back in the day, the 500 class was what green number plates, white numbers.
Yeah, it was green backgrounds with white. No, no, no. It was 250, the 250 class, like for motocross. Yeah, for the world championships. Yeah, it was
Yeah,
green backgrounds, white numbers, and then the 500 class was yellow backgrounds, black numbers.
exactly.
And then
So
125s was still white on black.
right.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think those are some things that I would have liked to see. Um, just those are easy things that you could sort of harken back to the tradition of the sport. I feel like a lot of times the immediate react or the immediate move is to do something that like this sport's never seen before, um, which I don't know is always the best course of action. But hey, I'm not the one
Right.
making the decisions, but that's just sort of what I think.
Well, and I'm wondering if they're going to make that a permanent thing moving on to all the next races and the combine races going forward with those with that color combination or at least a different color combination. And I'm wondering something else if they shouldn't look into for those amateur kids is if every one of them shouldn't be running a three-digit number. I get, those kids have run their two-digit numbers their whole lives, but since they're not
Mm.
pros yet, they haven't earned any kind of a number. Should they all be running three digits?
Yeah, that's another thing that's sort of confusing. We got 66, 400, 177, 24, 260, not 981. Like, yeah, that's you got
Well,
Fapani
not even
running
not
number
even for that
two.
aspect, just the variation, but just like you get so like at the next races or the Supercross races this year where the next kids ran, you got Enzo's Temmerman 21,
Right.
450 class, Jason Anderson 21, both
Right.
on Kawasaki's.
Both on Kawasaki's. They're gonna look identical aside from like if you're colorblind, it looks like the same damn thing.
Right.
So I don't know. That's just my thoughts. We're running a little bit long on this thing, but I think it's good banter. Give me your winners for St. Louis and a why.
I gotta go Jet on the 450. Just I don't see anybody touching him unless something happens where he goes down in the first corner. Uh, both motos, or maybe not even the first corner, but in the first 5 minutes. I don't see anybody else really giving it to him other than Chase. And I think even if Chase gets the start with him, I think Jet still maybe has the advantage just because of how he has been able to manage the races. I think that he's got that little something extra that he can uncork if he needs to. And then 250 class, um, I'll go Joe. I think he's riding well enough right now. I think he's as long as he gets a start again, I think he can put it to Hayden. And I don't, like I mentioned earlier, I don't think St. Louis is going to break down as badly as how Charlotte did. So considering that, I don't think the ruts are going to play as much of a factor to, where Hayden just, goes for broke through the ruts compared to Joe. So I think that's going to even it out a little bit more. So for those reasons, I say Joe gets the 250 win, all things factored in, going right.
Fair enough. I would pick against you, but I don't want to be wrong. I think that you just hit the nail on the head with both picks. Uh, no one in the 450 class has shown me that they can consistently place themselves in front of Jet Lawrence, and until otherwise, that he's your front runner. He's going to make it nice and boring. Um, I do think that technique wise, indoors it's Joe, and if he can get a start, I think he can race away from Hayden. I really think that he can, especially if Hayden happens to have like a sixth, seventh place start. They're not long races, and for two motos, I think it's going to be Joe in St. Louis, where traction is going to be at a premium. I think it's going to be a little bit drier. It's not going to just be like abundance of traction everywhere. So yeah, I think we're in harmony that way. Where can people follow Kyle Wolfe and where can people find more of your work, my friend?
Mainly just follow me on Instagram _Kyle_Wolf, or Kyle Wolfe Media on Instagram. I'm not as active on that one, but I'm getting back to running more of that. But then find me on YouTube. All my content from ISDE is on there. All my GNCC commentary videos are on there. I just released one from yesterday. I released that earlier today, so you can go check those out. But yeah, all things most things off road and a little bit of supercross and motocross in there. I'll be doing another video here coming up for Motocross the Nations at Ironman. But yeah, that's where you can find me on the internet.
Appreciate you making the time, my friend. Do not hang up just yet, but for podcast sake, we're going to cut things off right there.